Well, first, thank you, Christophe, for being here, for
Pleasure.
giving us the opportunity to talk to you and to learn from you. And also, thank you for massively increasing the footprint of Takeda in Boston, for which we're grateful. I'll start off just by asking about the pipeline at Takeda. You have a diverse pipeline that includes neuroscience, oncology, GI. And I'm curious if you could just tell us which therapeutic areas or even which modalities you're most excited about right now.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. And you mentioned that we increase our footprint in Boston. Well, that's because Boston deserves it and because we felt that this is very competitive for us to be here. I just want to mention that. We decided to create our global hub here, and most of our R&D, for example, organization is based here, and we very, very much like the ecosystem here. And it's part of our innovation and our ability to interact with academic center, biotech. It's really important for us to be here. Our pipeline is very diverse in terms of modality. One of the strategic decisions we made 10 years ago is to focus on a few therapy areas and to be more modality agnostic than in the past. We used to be a small molecule-only company across many therapy areas. We flipped that model a decade ago. It takes a while to re-engineer your R&D and your pipeline, and we are now entering a phase where we have multiple assets in phase 3. Many of them are exciting. Actually, I was listening to the previous session, and we do like targeted therapy, just to mention the previous comments. It's not a problem at all for us. The more targeted you are, the more efficacy you are, the more you improve the standard of care, the easier it is to get access, to get reimbursed, and to also help patients improve their therapy. So we have multiple assets in phase 3, but I will mention 2 which are in phase 3 and with a very significant potential to improve patient life, revenue potential as well. One is a TYK2 inhibitors, and we are in phase 3 in the psoriasis indication. And another one is in our neuroscience franchise. It's an orexin agonist to treat narcolepsy.
Interesting. Jason?
Can you talk a little bit about how you go about prioritizing therapeutic areas? The importance of scaling in specific therapeutic areas. I thought it was interesting, your counterpart at Novartis recently, in speaking about like the GLP-1s, said this area is too competitive for us. There's a rebate wall. There's a lot of things competitively that become a deterrent. We've heard a lot about AbbVie, Humira with the rebate wall. So maybe if you can just talk about how you look at categories and the importance of scaling and having, I think, a portfolio-based approach to go to payers, and does that matter?
Yeah. So the first, the prioritization start in our case with our therapy area prioritization. And so when we focus on GI and inflammation, oncology and neuroscience, that's our 3 therapy area. We have about, for each therapy area, if you combine research and development, we have about 200 to 500 people in each therapy area which are expert in the field. In terms of clinical development, pharmacology, translational. This is GI specialist, neuroscience. So that's a big first prioritization. Mm-hmm. You cannot enter a new field like that without the brain power and the expertise, right? So it's a very big decision to either shrink your therapy area focus or expand it. I mean, this takes a lot of time, and the question is, are you attractive enough to attract the best? Mm-hmm. In GI, in neuroscience, in oncology, we think we have among the best team. If we will start tomorrow in the obesity, for example, field, which we are not interested to enter, okay, you need to recruit people. And are you the most competitive to do that? Not sure. So start with the therapy area. Within the therapy area, the programs are competing against each other. And sometimes we have to accelerate the programs, prioritize. Our R&D budget is not unlimited. So today we have an R&D budget of, let's say, $5.5 billion. Mm-hmm. we need to manage that, and so we constantly prioritize programs based on multi-criteria. It could be, of course, the data, how competitive the program is, timing, etc. It's not one criteria. It's a judgment, case by case, as we go.
Sure, okay. And, maybe talk about where Takeda was as a company 10 years ago. You guys had digested Shire and expanded your footprint in the US market. A lot of companies derive, I think, the bulk of their sales and profit in the US end market. And so, as we think about strategically how important is the US market, and as you look ahead to sort of the evolving policy landscape, the election, I'm just curious, how much is that occupying your time?
Well, a lot. So 10 years ago, we were a company doing a bit of research, mainly small molecule. That was a strategy across about 12 to 15 therapy area. We were in the branded generic business, and we were in the OTC business. We decided to only focus on innovation. The other characteristic 10 years ago was that 40% of our revenue was coming from the Japanese market, so we were subscale in the US. So if you focus on R&D, if you decide to invest significantly on innovation, you need to be strong in the US because this is still the most innovation rewarding country. So you can only pay back your R&D investment if you have this ability to launch efficiently your product in the US. So our intent was really to increase our presence in the US. We did it organically, but also by acquisition. So we tripled our revenue in the US. Today, 50% of our revenue is coming from the US market.
Yeah.
Just 10 years ago, it was 20%. And the Japanese market represents now about 8% of our total revenue, which is $30 billion per year. It used to be 40%. So but that's really the rebalancing that we did at the time. Mm-hmm. And even though the US market is becoming more difficult and will be more and more difficult, but the other countries are becoming more difficult too, we think that it will still remain the most important country for innovation and early launch as well. In our case, for example, we know that in the first 5 years of a launch of a new medicine, usually the US market represents about 70% of the revenue in the first 5 years. So it's so important, this country is so important, but that's why the ecosystem is so unique as well. Huh? It's because the innovation is rewarded so well.
Yeah. Jason mentioned Shire. It's been 5 years since Takeda acquired Shire, and it's still one of the largest acquisitions in history in the industry. So I'm curious if you could talk about how you profile the risk in making a decision like that or not making it. And follow on to that, what lessons have you learned from that process, and would you have done anything differently in retrospect?
Yeah, it has been a big decision when you do that because it's so big that if it doesn't go well, you can destroy the company. And Takeda has been created in 1781, so you don't want to be the CEO who ends the life of a company like that. But so you assess the risk of doing it, and there is always risk, and you need to assess it very well. And it's a strategic risk as well as an execution risk, a valuation risk as well. What is very important and what is missed often is that you need to also assess the risk of not doing it. Because you don't find opportunities like that so often. And so you do both, and that's what eventually lead to the decision to do it. And once you do it, you need to execute very well the integration, and that's very, very key. In our case, we did it in about 1 year, so it was very good. We did it very well, and we did it very fast as well, which allowed us to finish the integration in terms of the people on the team right before COVID hit. So we were rewarded in a way by our speed here, and then you built almost a new company. and it takes time to digest. So I think 5 years later, we are way advanced. The integration is completely done, but there are still some areas which are work in progress, but no regret in our case, no regret at all, because we know what we will be without that acquisition.
Maybe coming back to some of the U.S. policy-related matters, the first look at the drug price negotiation came out recently for the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and so just curious your views on the magnitude of those price reductions versus expectation, and it sounds like from your prior answer to my question, this doesn't diminish your view on the ultimate attractiveness of it, just that it's perhaps a little bit more challenging and perhaps the tail on some of these commercial opportunities might be impacted negatively. Is that a fair way to?
Yeah, I think what this create this mechanism of price control, at this stage, it mainly create uncertainty, in fact, for the industry. Because we don't know how many molecules will enter this pricing mechanism. We don't know if the rule of negotiation will change. We don't know what will be the impact on the overall pharmaceutical market, the intra-class impact as well as the segment impact. And so it does create a huge uncertainty about the economic life of products. And so it is impacting the biotech sector, because if you are a biotech and you do a DCF model on your pipeline, now you need to factor in that potential price reduction. So it creates this huge uncertainty, which is not good for long-term investment, and it is weakening the US ecosystem for sure. It is weakening the US ecosystem, and I'm always worried when there is government intervention with price control, because we have seen the impact in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. Europe used to be the pharmaceutical powerhouse 20 years ago, no more. And I think government intervention is one of the reasons for that. Yeah.
Are there tangible examples where, because of the IRA and the way that it's structured, that it's led you to discontinue R&D programs? I think Bristol may have commented that certain oncology programs become a little less attractive because oral small molecules now have a 9-year product life cycle as opposed to a 12-year life cycle before that price negotiation kicks in. So I don't know if you feel like in your business that it's led to different decisions you've had to make? We don't deprioritize a program only for one reason only. But we do include the IRA dimension now in the assessment of the programs. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a program which is already, for example, borderline in terms of competitiveness, in terms of efficacy, safety, and now on top of that you layer in the IRA impact, it can have an impact. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that we have not taken a position that, for example, we have not taken a position in the company that's it, we are done with small molecule. First, because I believe that this difference between small and biologic will disappear. I think it's an anomaly, and eventually the two will converge. Mm-hmm. And certainly it should, because it makes no sense to differentiate the two. Sure. Allan, do you want?
I want to change direction for a second with a question that I find very interesting. You were born and raised in France. You run a Japanese company that is headquartered in the US. So there must be cultural differences in all aspects of the work, from the workplace through the process of innovation and discovery. And I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about those differences.
I was trained, I guess, during my professional life, because I worked in 9 different countries, in Europe, in US, in Asia. So that gives you a good feel about cultural differences and how how to interact with our colleagues. We are a Japanese company. Our global hub here is the most important. And it happens that actually the Japanese culture and the American culture are quite on the extreme on many dimensions. If you read any book on cultural differences. But I think we can have the right company culture to make sure that people work well together. And this is something we are working on to make sure that this is actually a competitive advantage. We invest a lot and we focus a lot on diversity and inclusion at Takeda. On my executive team, there are 10 nationalities. 10 nationalities on my executive team, and a 50-50 gender diversity as well. So a lot of diversity, and we really focus on creating a working environment where everybody can contribute.
And the company is family owned in
No,
Japan?
absolutely. No, it's not absolutely. No, it's a public company. We are listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange and in New York. It's the family is still a shareholder, but our largest shareholder has less than 7% of share.
It's been noted you guys are doing some novel work with digital companions in your clinical trials. Curious if you could talk a little bit more about that. Personally, as an analyst that follows the orexin space and how you monitor patient performance metrics during sleeping hours, for example. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you guys are maybe blazing a new frontier with digital companions and how you think that could ultimately add to the competitiveness of your data sets?
Yeah, we are embracing technology and AI. I want to say that we are embarking in a major transformation of the company, very, very clear. And we are investing. It's changing the way we work everywhere, in research and development and in manufacturing. On digital companion, I will use the orexin one because it's the most concrete and the most progress. We can use a companion to measure precisely your sleep pattern and therefore accelerate the diagnosis of narcolepsy. One of the issues with narcolepsy is that it takes years and years to be diagnosed, like many rare diseases. And so that will very much help to diagnose faster narcolepsy. And then once when the patient is diagnosed and treated, we could continue to measure the sleep pattern of a patient and understand better what is the effect of the treatment on his or her sleep pattern, and potentially even slightly adjust the treatment, the dose. So in the case of our orexin agonist, we will have multiple dosage. So the doctor and the patient could test and find the optimal dose. The companion could help. And then it will be a 2-dose. It's an oral product, 2 doses, one in the morning and one at lunchtime. But perhaps for some patients, 11 o'clock will be better than 12, than noon. And for some others, it will be better at 2 p.m. The companion diagnostic will help us doing that and optimizing the treatment. So it's really, really exciting. Now, there are a lot of questions about data privacy, where the patient data will be, who could analyze it, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to do the right thing, but it's really exciting.
So, and I'm sure not everyone in the audience knows narcolepsy type 1 with great detail, but it's believed to be due to an orexin deficiency, and so this is potentially the first sort of therapy that gets at root cause of the disease. And so I guess one of the questions that I've heard historically is, if you think about some existing therapies, improve sleep architecture, could these digital companions help discern that impact during sleeping hours on these patients to sort of bridge mechanistically what we believe that you're kind of correcting the patient's root deficiency with sort of an understanding of how they're consolidating sleep architecture?
That's the goal. That's the goal. If we can generate enough data and analyze sleep pattern, I think we could really understand what is the fundamental impact of the medicines. And you're right, it's an orexin agonist. We believe it will treat the cause, the underlying cause of the disease. So the efficacy we have seen in phase 2 is just unmatched, if you like. So it could potentially be almost a cure. Yeah.
Sure, okay.
One of the amazing things about the Boston landscape is the tight interaction between academia and the pharmaceutical industry. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the current state of that relationship and where are some sort of difficult areas that need to be improved to enhance drug discovery.
So I will talk first about research and then development. And so I think there are a lot of collaboration in research, and I think this is working very well because we can leverage the expertise that exists. One area where I feel we can make greater progress is on clinical development and clinical trial. Yeah. One of the big issues of the pharmaceutical industry is patient recruitment and clinical trial. And it's become more and more difficult to recruit patients. It's very competitive. It's too expensive. And I think the US is losing a bit of ground on that. And we need to make sure that the US remain the country where it is the easiest and fastest to recruit patients. If it's not the cheapest, it's okay. But at least because the quality is there, but is the easiest and fastest to recruit patients. And I think, of course, there is a huge potential with academic center. A lot of patients are coming there, right? But often it's not the priority. Often there is a lot of administrative burdenness to do clinical trials. I think that could be a huge improvement area in my mind.
That's good to know. Definitely something we can work on. Jason, did you have another question?
Yeah, so I believe Entyvio is probably like one of your biggest franchises, right? I think you've indicated that it'll have exclusivity out through around 2030 or so. How are you strategically approaching replacing a product of that size and significance? How important is, your internal bets versus externally M&A as a way to kind of remain a dominant force in the GI space as you've been?
Well, so yes, we will start facing biosimilars on Entyvio. It's our largest medicines in 2030. So we always look at, okay, how our pipeline is progressing. Is it enough to carry on growing while Entyvio will start declining? And then we have the BD as well on top of that. So we are constantly monitoring that to see if we have enough in the tank, if you like, to. Yeah. And we know that not everything will succeed as well. So you need to place your bet. And this is why there is always some BD in the industry. It's quasi impossible to synchronize your loss of exclusivity on your pipeline. And that's where, and BD is also a synchronization mechanism.
Yeah. Do you feel there's a perception amongst investors, this isn't related to Entyvio, but that larger scale M&A, that big companies are maybe deterred because of the FTC and the environment for FTC, and some larger deals, the Amgen Horizon deal, right, had to go through extended review, and so just the threat and the scare of having to go through those lengthy distractions for your businesses. I wonder how you might respond to that, and is the FTC a deterrent in your view to larger deals occurring in the future?
Well, I think a decade ago there were a lot of M&A because there was a race for scale. But right now the race is more for innovation and pipeline. Mm-hmm. So the large M&A might not be the best recipe for that. Antitrust has always been there, and it's evolved over time. But I think you can manage it. But it's more at the moment there is more a focus on innovation and pipeline, mm-hmm. and frankly also there are less opportunities. So when we acquire Shire, there were 4 mid-sized companies: Celgene, Allergan, Shire, and Takeda. And so the 3 others disappeared. And so now, there are also less opportunities in terms of M&A among pharmas. Now you have always the biotech of this world, and I think there will still be a lot of M&A in the field here.
Yeah.
Christophe, as we close, I just wanted to give you a chance to say any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to talk about.
Well, since we are in Boston and many of us are here, I think I would just acknowledge how strong the ecosystem here in Boston. There has been some competitiveness report going out a few days ago. There are some challenges, but we shouldn't underestimate how strong the ecosystem is here. And we should maintain it like that because it is unmatched anywhere in the world. So I think we should continue to reinforce it.
It's great. Great way to end it. Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you.